Warm tributes are being paid around the world to Britain's Queen Elizabeth II, who's died at 96. She was one of the world's longest reigning monarchs and heads of state. Her death means her son Charles has succeeded her. He called his mother's death a moment of the greatest sadness for himself and the royal family. World leaders have been offering their condolences. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said she was a role model and an inspiration for millions of people, while U.S. President Joe Biden said she was a steadying presence in a world of constant change. Meanwhile, Buckingham Palace has become a focus of national mourning.
They gathered in their thousands to pay tribute to their queen. It's a loss the country knew would come, yet the sense of shock and sadness is palpable and profound.
And we've all known just one queen. She's the person we've always looked up to. Somehow, it's just a sad day. Just a very, very sad day.
And she pledged her life to this country, and she led this country with great reverence and duty and respect and honor, and I just don't know if there will be another like her.
So I'm not a royalist, but I think she was a mother for us all, wasn't she?
She was the most wonderful inspiration for the country. And being here today, I'm honoured to sort of respect her. She just was leading as an inspiration for women.
The bedrock of British public life for the last 7 decades. The country and the Commonwealth have a new king and a new history to be made. But today is a time to reflect and mourn the death of Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II.
Our correspondent Birgit Maas is in London. Earlier, she told me how people there are reacting to the passing of the Queen and what's expected to happen in the coming hours and days.
The feeling is that this is really the only thing that is in people's minds at the moment. So politics has more or less ground to a hold, and people have been, as you've shown, flocking to Buckingham Palace. But also, I think just about everyone is touched by this, because the Queen has just always been there for everyone. She's just been this monarch for 7 decades, and I think many people had the sense that, you know, it's impossible for her not to be there and not to be the sort of figurehead of the country. And now to be faced with the reality of death, I think for a lot of people it's also a reflection on their own grief that they would have had over the years, their own experiences, maybe questions of death that everyone is trying to grapple with. I think this is what's behind that this is just really such a big moment for the country and for the British people.
Well, as with all things royal, the protocol of the coming days will surely be planned out in great detail. What can we
It is planned in great detail. However, there are still some insecurities because the Queen has died in Scotland and in Balmoral, and now what's been carefully planned for years and years, really meticulously planned, needs to be put to a test. So what we're expecting is that the body will stay in Scotland, where the Scottish people will be able to pay their respects, and then in about 4 or 5 days that the body will then be transported to London, and she will be in the Palace of Westminster, and then the people can in London pay their respects to the Queen. And this is all going to be a period of mourning in which Prince Charles will resume his official duties. So we're expecting him to give a broadcast, his first broadcast to the nation today. I think that will be a big moment. And then he will resume his activities. He's expected to travel all the nations, to travel to Scotland and Northern Ireland and Wales, and basically more or less introduce himself as the new king. And this is all going to happen in the next days. And then it's been reported that within a fortnight there will be the actual funeral, the state funeral for Queen Elizabeth II.
Having reigned for 70 years, the Queen was a pillar of stability. How dearly will her stabilising presence be missed?
Very, very dearly, Terry. It's a period of such instability at the moment. Britain has gone through a lot of turmoil, starting with a Brexit referendum, but also more recently, like other countries, Britain has been exposed to the war in Ukraine, the war in Europe, to high gas prices. That's exacerbated problems that a lot of British people have already had. The country has seen a period of economic instability where wages have been falling, inflation has been rising, and this is expected to rise quite dramatically within the next month. So it's a period where a lot of British people really are quite hard done by economically, and where I don't think the Queen would have played, such a big part in their daily lives, but just the presence that she has, she has always been there, and now to have to go through a transition and in a moment that's already economically very difficult for a lot of people, that will make it just that little bit harder, I think.
Birgit, thank you. That was our correspondent Birgit Maas in London. In a speech on her 21st birthday, the then heir to the throne, Princess Elizabeth, promised to dedicate her life to public service. It was a promise she kept to the end. Just a few months ago, Britain marked her 70 years on the throne with a Platinum Jubilee celebration. And earlier this week, she appointed her 15th new Prime Minister, Liz Truss. Here's a look at how the news of her death was broken to the nation.
A simple letter posted at the gates of Buckingham Palace, informing the public that the Queen had passed peacefully at her Scottish estate, and the country now has a king. As the news broke, people were already gathering outside the palace grounds. Many had been waiting for updates on the Queen's condition. Then flags fell to half-mast. Also at 10 Downing Street, flags were lowered. Prime Minister Liz Truss, just days into her new job, addressed the nation.
We are all devastated by the news that we have just heard from Balmoral. The death of Her Majesty the Queen is a huge shock to the nation and to the world. Queen Elizabeth II was the rock on which modern Britain was built. Our country has grown and flourished under her reign.
Earlier in the day, members of the royal family had rushed to be by the Queen's side. Several members flying into Aberdeen Airport before making their way to Queen Elizabeth's summer home in Scotland, Balmoral. All 4 of the Queen's children were there, including the heir to the throne, Prince Charles, now known as King Charles. In an official statement, Charles said that the family was mourning profoundly the passing of a cherished sovereign and a much-loved mother. Tributes to the Queen have already begun to flood in from around the world. Britain has lost its longest ever serving monarch, a leader who was for so many a cornerstone of stability through 7 decades.
I'm joined now in the studio by DW's Alex Forrest Whiting. Alex, Queen Elizabeth was on the throne for 70 years. She saw so much history. Tell us about some of the highlights, some of the milestones in her life.
Where do we start with this, Terry? She began as Queen when there was a British Empire, and she died as Queen when there certainly wasn't a British Empire. So she has really seen how Britain itself has changed as a huge global power and then more of a mid-ranking power now. During her reign, the building of the Berlin Wall, the falling of the Berlin Wall, the falling of the Soviet Union. I mean, it goes on and on. The Vietnam War. How many US presidents were there? 14 US presidents?
I think so.
And she met 13 including JF Kennedy. It goes on. And as we've just heard before, 15 British prime ministers, including Sir Winston Churchill, the wartime leader, and then on Tuesday, her 15th, Liz Truss. So it is an extraordinary reign, and so much has changed during those 70 years while she was on the throne.
Extraordinary indeed. And her reign was remarkably lacking in missteps, at least of her own.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much fair to say. I think the missteps have all really evolved around her personal life, or certainly her family's personal life. And I would say the biggest problem that she faced, where really her popularity dipped, was following the death of Princess Diana. That was King Charles's first wife. She was killed in a tragic car crash in 1997. And there was an absolute outpouring of grief across the world, but particularly in the United Kingdom, and the Queen decided to stay in her Scottish residence at Balmoral for a week before she came down to London. So there was some criticism about that and about her not really understanding just what an important moment this had been when Diana died. So on the whole, she really played the role to perfection, but there were a couple of missteps, certainly.
We'll come back to you in just a moment. The Queen's firstborn son, formerly Prince Charles, is now the new monarch, to be known as King Charles III. He had this to say about his mother.
The death of my beloved mother, Her Majesty the Queen, is a moment of the greatest sadness for me and all members of my family. We mourn profoundly the passing of a cherished sovereign and a much-loved mother. I know her loss will be deeply felt throughout the country, the realms and the Commonwealth, and by countless people around the world. During this period of mourning and change, my family and I will be comforted and sustained by our knowledge of the respect and deep affection in which the Queen was so widely held.
Royal observers have said they expect Charles's coronation to be quicker and smaller than that of his mother, and it's an event he's had ample time to prepare for. Let's take a look now at Charles's long wait to become king.
He was dubbed the Perpetual Prince, waiting to be king longer than any other heir to the throne before him. Charles Philip Arthur George Mountbatten Windsor was born in 1948, the first son of Princess Elizabeth. He was 4 years old at his mother's coronation.
Queen Elizabeth II passes from the Abbey, consecrated and dedicated to her life work.
After attending boarding school and graduating from Cambridge University, Charles continued royal tradition by serving in the Royal Air Force and Royal Navy. At 32, the world's most eligible bachelor announced his engagement to Lady Diana Spencer, 13 years his junior.
Just delighted and happy. And I'm amazed that she's been brave enough to take me on.
The couple married in July 1981. It was the wedding of the century and captured the world's imagination. Thousands came out to cheer, and around the globe, hundreds of millions watched the ceremony on their TV screens.
Where are we going?
The couple had 2 sons, William and Harry. But the fairy tale wasn't to last. Charles and his wife seemed increasingly unhappy. The press published leaked phone conversations that showed Charles was having an affair with a former girlfriend, Camilla Parker Bowles. In 1992, they made their split official.
It is announced from Buckingham Palace that, with regret, the Prince and Princess of Wales have decided to separate.
A year after the couple divorced, Diana was killed in a car crash in Paris after being hounded by paparazzi. Charles accompanied her body back to Britain. There was an outpouring of public grief at Diana's death, and with the scandals surrounding their marriage not yet forgotten, public opinion of Prince Charles and the royal family had never been so low. Charles continued to dedicate himself to his royal duties and his charitable causes, most notably the Prince's Trust, a charity he set up to help improve the lives of disadvantaged young people. His relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles continued to develop, and in 2005 the couple were married in a civil ceremony. Together they have carried on Charles' work on sustainability. He has always been passionate about the environment, promoting organic farming and biodiversity on his estate, but also on a global stage. At the COP26 climate summit in Glasgow, he urged global leaders to do more to limit global warming.
The cost of inaction is far greater than the cost of prevention. Time has quite literally run out.
As his mother stepped back from some of her responsibilities in recent years, and especially after the death of his father, Prince Philip, Charles took a more significant and active part in discharging royal duties. From king in waiting to king in training, now Charles will take on the role that he has been preparing for his entire life.
And DW's Alex Forrest-Whiting is still with me. Alex, once the period of mourning is over, King Charles will have some very big shoes to fill. Do Britons think he's up to the task?
Well, he has been preparing for it for a very long time, but I think it's going to be very difficult for him to ever reach the popularity of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, just because she was there for 70 years, and that obviously lasted through thick and thin. And Prince Charles has had some knocks to his popularity, as we saw in that report, most notably over that affair with Camilla Parker Bowles, even though he was married to Princess Diana, and then what happened following the death of Princess Diana. So he's had to build that popularity and the respect back up over the past 2 decades at least. And I think he certainly made a good job of that. He's done things like he's tried to streamline the monarchy. I think we will see more of that in the future. And he's also tried to make sure that everybody knows that Prince William is his heir. And he's been lining up Prince William and Kate, who've been doing many more duties on his behalf and previously on the Queen's behalf. So I think that he knows the audience he's got to play to, which is to promote the younger generation.
Alex, thank you very much. That was DW's Alex Forrest-Whiting. Now, in her 7 decades on the throne as Britain's head of state, Queen Elizabeth II met countless world leaders. Now, tributes are pouring in from across the globe. Let's take a look at some of them.
Lowering the flag in honour of Queen Elizabeth, a mark of respect from President Biden.
I had the opportunity to meet her before she passed, and she was an incredibly gracious and decent woman. And the thoughts and prayers of the American people are with the people of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth in their grief.
Other world leaders echoed those sentiments as tributes flooded in.
Queen Elizabeth was a woman who defined a century in the United Kingdom and beyond. She witnessed history and wrote it herself. Here in Germany, she was admired and venerated. Millions of Germans are united in sorrow and sympathy with the people of the United Kingdom. With deep sadness, I have learned of the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. It is a heavy loss for the whole of Europe and the world. From all Ukrainians, I express sincere condolences to the royal family, the whole of the UK and the Commonwealth. Our thoughts and prayers are with you.
UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres said that Elizabeth would be remembered for her unwavering, lifelong dedication. Scores of other leaders have rushed to pay their respects to the woman who was the face of a nation for so many years.